Kevin, warm welcome to Startup Grind.
Hey, such a pleasure to be here.
To kick things off today, maybe you can give a brief introduction about yourself and your background.
Yes, I would love to. Hey, well, look, I started off my career not in a startup. I mean, you have a lot of startups here and entrepreneurs. I started off in accounting and finance, and I think I knew from an early age that if I wanted to, have an impact on business, I needed to get some skills. And when I was doing my university degree, I worked with Intel Corporation. I just took an internship, and I thought I was just, like the the gopher, the person not really doing much of impact. And I'd be crunching the numbers and passing them on to my boss. And I thought it would go there and that would be it. And then one day I was in the meeting and the CEO of the MEA region, so Europe, Middle East and Africa, he was explaining to me why we need to change direction, why we need to do some things differently. And he put up my slides to justify his decision. And also, you had one of those moments like the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. It was like, wow, me as an intern, even with no skills, no training, if I understand and can analyze things, I can make a change even like the largest of businesses. And so it just became fascinating for me. Ever since then, I really wanted to get very good at understanding, how to read the business numbers, how to understand them so that we can make positive change in organization. And that led me to working with some very large organizations, Qantas, Business Travel here, Hills Hoist, Airbus, in the UK. And I had this really interesting situation where I got very good at the accounting, so I could get sent into the business units that weren't working and I could see what was wrong and how to turn them around. But I ended up finding a different problem because when you go into a business that's not working or not scaling or not growing in the right way, you have other issues. You have the issues of, people, they would come in the office, if things aren't working right, they come in the office and they'd be upset. They'd be crying and they'd have, really upset. And I had no training to deal with that. Like the best skill set I had was to go, oh, like, here you go, have a tissue. Like that was my skill set. So I realized I needed to go and learn a lot about how to be more effective as a communicator and a leader. And I did a heap of study and a heap of training on how to run my own mind more effectively. And when I realized I can shift the way I felt and the way I saw things, the way I believe about things, I started getting different results. My results improved massively, and I could help my team members do the same as well. And so once I did that, accounting and finance and budgets and 3-year plans and board reports and board reviews wasn't exciting. Going to work with business owners and business leaders, helping them to shift their mindset, shift their results, and maximize their profitability. That became my focus, and I've been doing that now. It would be coming up to a decade and a half.
Being parachuted into companies like that must be so exciting because you get to see everything on the inside. And today we're going to dive into that fascinating topic, how now AI can help us. So how can we maximize profits with AI? And you and I connected through one of your online events where I participated, and we got to start talking, and I sort of, based on your knowledge about AI and also how to help companies, large and small, and you also do podcasts, which we're going to come back to, I said, well, why don't you come and become a sort of a guest at Startup Grind? So we're thrilled to have you here today. Now, when we look at where do we start this journey, and I think we could start looking at what is the right mindset for somebody to be able to be successful in the business.
Yeah, I love it. It's such a powerful question, and we can talk for days on this one as well. I'm going to share with you some of the more important ones because when I was working in Tony Robbins' organization, so at some point on my journey, I got to coach some of the senior clients that he had, leading executives from the largest organizations, including like the Admiral of the US Navy. And I had this realization, this gentleman at the top of his game, he's leading, he's a leader in the country, right? He's advised multiple presidents, and even in my coaching conversation with him, he was having doubts or fears that he wasn't good enough. Right, I'm thinking this is someone at the top of their game. They're being trusted by world leaders. They are effectively leading in the world, and even they had doubts. And I think it gave me a realization, like everyone has the doubts, no matter where you are in your journey of your business. If you're a startup, if you're scaling up, you're still having doubts. But the only difference I noticed was that those leaders who were having success versus those who weren't, they were choosing not to buy into those doubts. They were choosing to have a bigger vision or a bigger purpose. They knew where they wanted to go, and they were going to keep going. And if that vision is big enough, you can see where you go. And then these obstacles that come in the way, that they're not going to be as calamitous. They're not going to stop you because you actually know where you want to go. So no, number one is like, don't buy into those beliefs or those doubts. Everyone has that negative self-talk. Some just choose to buy into those beliefs more than others. So that's number one. The other piece on that, and this can happen particularly in the early stages of your business, you have all these things to do. You have all these things to do, and maybe not as many people to help as you want, and the list is growing and growing and growing, and you can focus on this, like, I still got to do this, I still got to do this, I still got to do this. But what happens when you do that, it becomes, self-defeating. Your energy drops because you're always focused on all the stuff you haven't done yet, and it makes you feel bad. Whereas what I've noticed with some of these leading leaders, experts, they have a different perspective on this. I'll give you an example. One of my friends, he's a senior executive in a large beverage company. He and his family come to stay with us when we're living in Amsterdam. Now, I took the kids to the park, and he went in, to the supermarket with the shopping list from the wives to go and get all these random things. Of course, in a country, in a shop where he couldn't read the language. Anyway, he was meant to be 20 minutes. 30 minutes go by, 40 minutes go by, he hadn't come out. So I go into the shop to find him, and he's walking around the shop. I don't know about you, but for me, if I'd been in the shop for 40 minutes, and I was expecting him for 20 minutes, I would be frustrated. I'd be really annoyed, and I just want to get out of there. Anyway, I found him, and he was like, he's quite happy. And he's like, oh yeah, I've got points for this, and I've got points for this, and I've got points for this. I mean, what do you mean you've got points? Like, what are you talking about? He said, well, I got this. This was on my list. I got points. So he was counting up the points for all the things that he'd put into his shopping basket, rather than agonizing over the one or two things he hadn't yet. And so I think this is a really great example. A good mindset is to have like a progress points principle. If we're counting the points, counting the things that we've done well, the things that are working, not all of this list that we haven't got to yet, but all these things that are going well. The more we do that, the more we're feeling successful, the more like we feel like we're moving forwards, and it builds a positive momentum instead. One of my favorite definitions of success comes from a gentleman called Earl Nightingale. And he says that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, right? So have that vision and be noticing the progress you're making. And I'll give you a practical way to do this. This one comes around with me everywhere, right? It's a diary. It's got a page for every single day. Every day I note down my wins. I write down, what have I done well today? Even in the worst days, even when I've had terrible days, clients have quit, things have gone wrong, tech is broken, there's always wins. There's things you can do. Now, this was reinforced by an interview I did with a leading psychologist who taught at Harvard University, at the business school. And I asked her, what's the most important question we should be asking ourselves? And she said, that's it. What are my wins? What are my wins for the week? She said every Friday night she sits down with the kids, and they've got to answer the question, what were their wins for the week? So and it's not about that moment. So Kevin, is putting it in their mind, so they're looking for it all week. All week they go through looking at what are their wins, what are they going to say on a Friday night. So when they sit down on a Friday night as well. So I think important mindset there. Yeah, have a clear vision of where you're going. Count your wins. Get them in the journal. Write them down. Anchor it to your dinner routine with your family if you need to. So these are two. Should I keep going on this topic, or I know you want to do other questions as well?
No, I think they're really great sort of practical steps that any entrepreneur can do, is having that point system in your head. But I also know that, any entrepreneur, eventually the team will grow. So if you take this mindset, how do you scale it up to work also with a team, and how do you make your team enthusiastic about the same questions?
Yeah, well, hopefully your team are aligned to your vision and your goals. They've come in because they're excited by what you're creating. In alignment with that, can we get their rewards, their remuneration linked to the success of the company? I mentioned Tony Robbins. He's probably a good example of someone who did that, because at some point he introduced an employee share scheme, and he was looking at increasing the value of the company. Now, he knew on his type of business, he might get an 8 times multiple of the EBITDA, right? And something like that. So what he would be telling his team is, hey, you're owners in this company now. Every $1 that you waste, $8 comes off of the value of your business, right? Every $1 that you put into this business in profitability, your valuation goes up $8. And so it was a very good way to get people aligned. Now, we can't always be giving shares or stock options to everyone, but there's a definite way there. The other one that I think is interesting for me, I interviewed Daniel H. Pink, New York Times bestselling author. He said, really you need to pay people enough just to get that conversation of money off of the table. But often what can become more important is recognition, right? So when someone does a good thing, right, they're in alignment with your values, they've accomplished something, they've made something happen, recognize them, give them the recognition, help them, feel connected to that. And that will just help them feel engaged. One other thought on this, there's a big rabbit hole we can go down here on this, with this one as well. For your employees, people will keep connected to a company or an organization so long as their needs are being met, right? And we have six human needs that we're trying to meet with everything we do. If you can meet all 6 of these needs at high level in your role, in the job you're doing, you're not going to go anywhere, right? So can you help give the employees certainty about their role and their position in the company. Can they get enough variety so it doesn't become boring or or fatiguing? Can they feel important, like significance, right? And that may be part of where the recognition comes in. They feel significant. They got an important role, is a meaningful role. Anyone could be significant in the organization, right? Even in one of the roles we had, a cleaner. The cleaner may not have felt completely significant in the scheme of things, but actually it was a training organization. If they didn't clean that room and prepare that room, the customers have a really bad first impression. So we could help them feel significant. Love and connection, feel like they're connected. What are you doing to make sure these people come together and feel like they belong? And then the next two would be growth and contribution. Are you giving them space to keep growing in the way that they want? Are they going to grow into the role that they want, the opportunity they want? Can they become the person they want to become? And do they get to contribute? Do they get to make a difference? So I think if you can help them feel fulfilled on all 6 of their human needs, and check in on this, have a review, once a quarter, once a month, check in. Hey, let's do a rating of your needs out of 10. Tell me, how well is this role meeting your needs out of 10? 10 is the most, 0 is the least. Where are you? If you can get a rating on those things, when you start seeing those numbers drop or go down, then let's have a conversation. Oh, I noticed that, your significance there, you've only given a 3. Oh, what's happening in the role? What can we change? What can we do? How can we improve that?
Yeah, and it creates sort of first point, just the interesting thing that you said about that presentation at Intel. They showed your slides, like, the recognition that you got, and that sort of got you into this profession. And I was at an AWS event a few weeks back, and this popped up on this screen that everybody was watching about this review. And I asked one person later and said, no, we do actually daily reviews. They are anonymous, but it gives us sort of the heartbeat of the company, because you do them every day. They're not very long, but it just gives you that understanding of how things are going. Yeah. No. So my background, I'm an engineer, so I like to see things processed visually. And I mean, as you said, for me, the mindset, the profit mindset, the understanding of having the best mindset is the foundation of the house. And then, of course, if we kind of look upwards, we have then the knowledge. And what generative AI is giving us a lot of knowledge, but it's not always that we know what question to ask. So how can an entrepreneur overcome the gap of knowledge, to sort of the unknown that they don't know that they need to know to do what you just said?
Okay, great. 3 words for you that will answer this pretty succinctly, and it's success leaves clues. In any endeavor, whether it's working with AI or anything else you're doing, see who's already having success in the area and go and ask them one question. How do you do that? If you ever see a magician do a magic trick and they all of a sudden make a card appear from nowhere, you're like, wow, how'd you do that? Go and ask. There are people who have dedicated a lot of time and a lot of energy into being very good prompt engineers. They've understood how to interrogate the system. That sounds a bit harsh, but they've learned how to converse with the system in the right way to get the output. So there's clues. Go and ask other people. They'll show you. The other options you got, I mean, if we think about some of these tools, I know ChatGPT being one of the more popular ones, there's tools or plugins that you can add to them that are really going to help you be better at prompting. So if you're not great at writing prompts, you can go and use a tool, something like AI PRM, right? And it just sits across the top of it, and it's already kind of pre-coded some of the prompts in there, right? So you want to do something on SEO, well, you just type in the keywords and it's already written the prompts on how to get you good SEO, right? So as an example. The other thing is, in those types of tools, we can go in and leverage custom GPTs. These, again, are also tools. Custom GPT is essentially someone else putting some rules in there for you. They've written pretty clever prompts about how you can do it. So right now, as an example, say I wanted to review some CVs. I've got the option of trying to use my own knowledge, which I haven't reviewed, millions of them. I've reviewed, probably hundreds, maybe thousands, probably hundreds. I think hundreds are probably it over my career now. But there are people out there who've reviewed thousands and tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands. They put that into a system. It's in a custom GPT. You can go and upload the CVs there you want to review, and it will give you the feedback. It will tell you, right? So go and leverage the tools that exist already. I think probably more I can say on that, but I think, I mean, tell us your perspective, because I know you know a lot about this topic.
No, but it's as you say, the important thing is to know what to look for and to sort of getting started and using some form of system. But I know that you have also developed a system called the science of profit maximization. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about how that works and sort of how you can also use this together with AI.
Yeah, perfect. Hey, look, I think there's a few things we can do on that. Number one, I've got a free report, which I'm happy to gift everyone on here. And you said you like visuals. I wonder if I can magically There you go.
Sure.
I think I get the visual on the screen.
Yep.
So there's a report there. If you go to the profit.gifts, profit.gifts is like my gift to you, then you'll be able to download that report. It shows you 125 free and easy ways to maximize your profitability. I've had people go through that report and find thousands of dollars in opportunity just by going through the report. But as with any engineer or accountant, we love step by step. There's like seven things we should focus on. Right. Number one, for a lot of business owners, is they're not attracting enough qualified new leads. So if I'm doing this science of profit maximization with you, the first question I want to ask is, how many leads are you getting? How frequently do they come? Are they highly qualified? What are they like? So are we getting enough? Now, quick assessment you can take right now for your startup. Are you having a trickle of leads come in? Are you having a flow of leads come in? Or are you having a flood of leads come in? We can have the other problem. We can have too many leads, right? That can also be an issue. But where are you at with that? Do you have the quality that you want there? Number two is, if you're getting those leads, how well are you converting them? Out of every 10 that you get in front of you, are you managing to convert 10 of them, or are you managing to convert one of them? And both of those numbers, we have different things we're going to need to change. But if you don't have a solid sales process, then all of it doesn't matter how many leads you get. You can just let them all slip through anyway. Now, I'll give you an example. If we put a focus on that, I had a client, he was manufacturing and installing kitchens. Now, when he would go out and do the sales, he would get 80% conversion, right? 8 out of 10. He'd been doing it for 30 years. He was very charming. He knew how to work with the customers. And then his team were getting 15 to 20% conversion. Now, we put focus on them, and over a period of 6 months, we showed them, a handful of things. This report I've just shared with you, I think there's 20 something different ways in there, 22, 23 different ways. We worked on 2 or 3 of them with them. We helped give them a guarantee so it can do a risk reversal. We showed them how to build rapport with the clients. Those 2 things, we put focus on those things in the first instance. Their conversion rate went from the 15% up to 30, 35%. So his revenue over doubled just by changing that one area. So now, the other thing on that, of course, is conversion is the speed to conversion. How long is it taking you to convert? Is it taking you years to convert a client? Or is it taking you months? Or is it taking you weeks? Or can you get it done in days? Because that could be a fundamental difference to the success of your business. So that's number 2 in there. Number 3 is maximizing your average spend. How are you helping your clients purchase higher value of products from you? I'll give you a simple example of this. One of my clients, he sells software and licenses. So say like an Atlassian service provider. And he was offering, he can offer with the range of suite of products I have, he could offer all of this. But typically his first offer was like down here, and he'd offer them that, and that's what they would buy. But if we could start repositioning it and actually saying, hey, look, we can do all of this stuff here, we can do all of these things. Well, some of them would buy this and then ascend to that. But actually what happened more often than not, more of them would buy at the higher level in the first place. So are we positioning things so people can buy at a higher price? Now, I don't know what all the businesses are on the call, but I'll give you another example. I had an artist, and his average sale in his studio was like $5,000. He had like paintings on the wall, 4, 5, 6,000. I said to him, what's the most expensive painting you can do? He said, oh, well, if I did a really big one, I could do a $25,000 painting. Like, great, do a $25,000 one, put it on the wall. He put the $25,000 painting on the wall, and guess what? His average sale went up from 4,000 up to 8,000. Right? It changed his life, right? Because all of a sudden now people are looking at the $25,000 picture, and of course the $12,000 picture or the $8,000 picture looks very good in comparison. Whereas before they were only comparing to like 3, 4, 5. Well, the foreground looks good. So there's a bit of a contrast frame there. There's some games you can play on. How do we help your customers spend more money with you? The 4th one then is, how frequently do they purchase? How often do they come back and buy again? And sometimes we just don't ask enough, right? I went to see the dentist, and at the end of the appointment, they never said, hey, can we book you in for another time? Like they could have got me back every 6 months without fail. Had a gardener come around here, and I want to be focusing working with my clients. So he was coming to cut the grass, mow the lawn. At the end of it, he could have said, hey, Kevin, your grass needs to be cut every 2 weeks, right? And it does. If it goes any longer, that gets too long. And I said, yeah, sure, come back. He would have had 26 times the revenue. Didn't even ask. So can we get people to purchase more frequently? We've got lawyers on the call. A group of lawyers I work with out of Ecuador. They were doing a lot of patents and trademarks. And of course they come up for renewal every so often, but they weren't getting the clients to renew them in time. And so what we did is we did a campaign to just remind them, automated campaign to remind them at the beginning of the year or the beginning of the period. And they ended up making more money in the first 3 months of the year than they had in the whole previous year, because they weren't letting these things slip through. So can we get your people to purchase more frequently? I'll go quickly through the others because I know you've got other questions to get to then. So that's the 4th one. The 5th one is are we managing our expenses effectively? Every business owner I ask that, they go, yes, I'm really tight on it. But the reality is, if I come in and look through your expenses and I ask one question, is this really necessary? Look at all your expenses, say, is this really necessary? The probability is in a lot of cases, it's not always necessary. There's things we can leave off and it won't make a blind bit of difference to the client at the end of the day. If it is necessary, we can always look at it and say, hey, well, when was the last time I renegotiated on that? Can I get myself a better deal? Take a look at something in there, maybe your accountant, and sorry if there's any accountants on here, you won't like this, but look at it and say, hey, I'm going to go and get a quote from another 2 service providers and see what they're going to offer me. Now, it may be the case they show you that your accountant's doing an amazing deal already. Fantastic, right? And however, if they show you that they'll offer you a better deal or give you better value and you like your accountant, go back and have a conversation. Hey, I love working with you. And this doesn't have to be accountants, anyone, any new provider in here. I love working with you. However, these guys are going to offer me a better deal. Can you match it? Can you do something? In many cases, they will. They'll want to because they have a good relationship with you. So number 6 and number 7. And number 6 is not managing time effectively. Now, time isn't really profit, but it kind of is. A lot of us, if we can use our time to more valuable activities, we're going to help, get more impact in our organization, more growth. So are you focusing your energy on things that are high value, that are fulfilling to you, or are you stuck doing things that are low value and really unfulfilling? A lot of us can get stuck in bookkeeping, admin, email, and those things. But, maybe the high value stuff that's more rewarding for us is up in that top quadrant, which is, let's do sales, let's do marketing, let's do product development, whatever it is. What's a high value thing for you? And then finally, so I know we can fit in your other questions, is not managing cash effectively. Again, cash isn't profit, but if we've got cash tied up in assets, or people, and they're not yielding a return, can we switch them out and put them into something that's going to get us a higher yield or a higher return? So, and for some of you, if you have businesses with stock and inventory, have you got too much inventory sat on your balance sheet? Are you leaving your customers, letting your customers take too long to pay? Are you, paying your suppliers too quickly? Is another way we can get cash back into the business. So that's the 7 key areas, and hopefully, I probably could go on about that for a day as well, but hopefully the overview works.
So I really like the ones, for example, with the lawyers, because that's also something, as you said, you can automate. I mean, reach out to anybody whose visa is about to expire, whose contract is about to expire. So it's a simple thing to do, just collect that information. But also when it came with the cash, so from Hong Kong, what took the sort of Hong Kong wasn't that good with startups until co-working spaces moved it in, and that suddenly you didn't need to lock up your cash in a deposit, and you didn't take a risk. So anybody could set up their own startups. That was like around 2015. I know that. So we're going to leave a link to that product in the sort of the description, but you also have a profit maximization scorecard. So are those points on that scorecard, or how does it work?
Yes, and on the same link, I try to make it convenient so you wouldn't have to go everywhere, but on that profit.gifts link, you'll find the scorecard, and the scorecard, it does cover some of the things in the report. The report gives a lot of solutions, but the scorecard goes to the Pareto principle. Here are the 20% of things that are going to make an 80% improvement in terms of your profitability. You go through the scorecard. It will take 2-3 minutes. I think it's like 30-35 questions, somewhere like that. Now, the average score that people get in there is around 19-20. So if you take that and you're way below that, great. We have some opportunities, some things that we can do with you to help really improve your results. And and if you're above that, good, you're on the right track. But let's identify them specifically. What are the 2, 3, 4 things that we can do that will help boost your profitability more? So yeah, you find out pretty quickly, 2-3 minutes, and you get yourself a score and assessment.
Yeah, that's a great tip, and everybody should do that, and maybe also review the same scorecard going over time, so that you ask the same questions again and again and see that you're improving.
I like that. Thank you. I'm gonna follow up all the people who've taken that scorecard and ask them. That's such a great follow-up there. Thank you.
You also, sort of changing gears a little bit, you also run a podcast. You have interviewed over 250 people on the podcast, Life Changing Questions for Business Owners. So, and I actually went through your archive on your website. Sort of out of curiosity, what is the most fun or unexpected podcast you have out of those?
There's so many amazing ones to share about. Let me tell you, I'll give you the context of the podcast, and I could probably tell you to why I like some of this. So the idea I kept hearing in personal development over and over again is, the quality of the questions you ask impact the quality of your life. Keith Cunningham said it slightly differently. He said, smart people have great answers, and geniuses have great questions. I'm like, oh, I like that. So I just become a collector of questions. I'm asking these people who are having heaps of success. I'm asking them what's the, the question they've asked that had the biggest impact on their life, or biggest impact on the clients that they serve. I've had so many different answers. To pick one fun one, it's kind of like asking you to pick your favorite child. I don't think I can do it.
I'm not gonna let
I'll think of the, I'll think of a very early episode, because here's the thing that was amazing for me. I didn't have any credibility to ask some of these people to come and interview with me, right? But the second I said I had a podcast, the door opened up. They were willing to spend time with me, and so immediately, that was mind blown already. I have these people who are New York Times best-selling authors. They're having millions of downloads. They've sold their business for 130 million. And are willing to spend time with me. Early episode with Amanda Holmes. Now, she is an amazing CEO. She, I think at the time, late 20s. She had been a musician, and then her father passed away. And so she stepped into the family business. And it's amazing, she's helped grow that business, and you probably wouldn't have expected it, a musician stepping into a very much a business world. And the question that she asked, which was really interesting to me, she was asking the question of who am I? Who am I? Now, it seems like a simple question, right? But there's a lot packed behind that, because in terms of identity, we say, I think it probably Maxwell Maltz who said this, he says the strongest force in human personality is to remain consistent with how we define ourselves. And if she was going to define herself as a musician, she would never have success as a CEO in this organization. She would never have success as a marketer or as a salesperson. So she had to shift her identity and change her identity. Otherwise, she keeps showing up as a musician, playing guitar around the office, and it's not really going to help. So I want to get you to think right now is, how are you defining yourself? What are you saying about yourself? And is it empowering to you? I'll give you some common examples of this. I hear people say all the time, I am a terrible sleeper. And guess what? They really struggle to sleep. And then they say, I am terrible at remembering names. Does anyone ever say that? I'm terrible at remembering names, right?
Yep.
Terrible at remembering names.
Yep.
Now, I often play a game with people when I present to a live audience, say, hey, right, if I'm going to give you $1 million for every name that you remember, are you going to be good at remembering names? And like, yes, of course I'm going to be good at remembering. I'm going to get $1 million for every name. So it then tells you it is a belief. If I can shift that belief for the financial incentive, it's just a belief. So now, the more you reinforce it, I'm terrible at remembering names. Yeah, you can be terrible at remembering names. I am a procrastinator is a common one. I am a procrastinator. It's like, no. You're not a procrastinator. Like that's a behavior exhibiting, but you're not. There's not your identity. As soon as you say that identity, of course, you're going to keep reinforcing that behavior. And by the way, if you do happen to say you're a procrastinator, I actually don't mind procrastination. I think procrastination is a great strategy if you use it with the right thing, right? So I often think about eating, a heap of junk food, and then I procrastinate on that. I put that off, and hey, great, I get to be in shape, I get to be healthy. So yeah, back to this identity then. Who am I? So how are you defining yourself right now? And if you could be at this vision we spoke about before, if we could be at this vision where you were, you want to be there 5 years, 10 years in the future, your startup is now scaled up, you've exited, you've got a heap of money, you're living your dream life, whatever it is, whatever that vision is, who would you be then? Well, how would you describe your identity then? Because if you can start describing yourself as that person now and start acting as that person now, guess what? You're more likely to attract that and make that happen. I'll give you a couple of examples of this, simple examples, but I decided that I had a vision, could I run a marathon? And I'd never run that far before. But the moment I decided to do it, I started saying, I am a marathon runner. And I had to start acting like a marathon runner. I went and brought the trainers. I started, reading the program and finding out the program, what do I need to eat? When do I need to train? And I started telling people, I am a marathon runner. Guess what happens is as soon as you start telling people that you're a marathon runner,
they're going to ask you to participate.
They're going to ask you, hey, how's your training going, Kevin?
Yep.
And so you publicly declare it. You then have to start acting in accordance with that. Right? Because you want to be true to your word. The strongest force in the human personality is remain consistent with how you define yourself. So if you publicly state it out loud, guess what? You're going to start showing up and acting like that. Right? I have multiple examples on this. I started saying, I am an author. And I would never write. And then one night, a kid's book came out of me. I had no intention of writing this thing. I sat down, I was inspired, out it came. I got it off to an illustrator, and it's done. Now, I think my brain on some level, so you can't keep being incongruent. Like, here's your book, like, have it. Now I am an author, right? Leadership. Going back to my story at the beginning, I was put in these places because I was good with accounting and numbers. I wasn't good as a leader. I had no training in leadership. And so when a situation would arise, I had a pretty big team then, the organization at Qantas Business Travel had 350 people, I think. And there was times when I needed to step in and lead, but I didn't see myself as a leader, so I held back. But then once I started saying, I am a leader, guess what? Next time those situations arose, my brain went, you're a leader, step in. And I did.
Yeah.
So my question to you is then, how are you defining yourself, and how could you be defining yourself? And so whilst that maybe wasn't a fun episode, it is one that sticks in my brain, is probably going right to the core of, us as entrepreneurs. If we can define ourselves in a different way, if we see ourselves in a different way, guess what? We're going to take different actions and get different results.
Yeah, and nowadays, I mean, what I'm trying to tell people is that you're not going to say I am an AI, but I can definitely be an AI user. But one curious thing, because your podcast episodes, of course, becomes like the tree trunk, the circles that we see, the growth and so on. I mean, in your latest episode, or when have you seen generative AI and AI sort of slip into the conversations as well in the last 2-3 years with your guests?
Yeah, I think more so in the last 12 months than before that, because it wasn't quite so spoken about. Now, when I think about AI, it came to a lot of people's awareness perhaps when ChatGPT launched. Now, I'm confused. Was that two years? Are we coming up on 2 years or 3 years now?
Well, I November 2022, that's when they released it, but I think most people got it like February, March 2023.
Yeah, okay. So 22, 23, 24. So coming up on 2 years. And so like I remember when that thing came out, and I guess a lot of people didn't know what to do with it. I was asking it to tell me jokes, and my dad was here at the time, and it said I went for a lot of terrible jokes, but it said, "Why did Bob from Bristol go to the beach? To see if the sand was as rough as his accent." And I thought, oh, okay, that's pretty good. I quite like that. And then I asked it to tell me a joke about my wife, Jodie, and she's not the tallest in the world, and it just coincidentally said, "Why wasn't Jodie on the basketball team? Because she's too short." I was like, okay, well, this is pretty good. I'm happy with these things. So I guess since then we began to see better uses for it than coming up with jokes. And I don't know how amazing it is at telling jokes right now. But yeah, I think within the last 12 months I started having, the first guy who came on was he was very quick to start using it in the medical industry, and he wrote a lot of books using ChatGPT, and then he's of course telling medical professionals how they can start implementing it in the medical field. So he's very early in his niche. I think two months, maybe a month ago, I had the first person come on and describe themselves as a AI implementation agency, right? So that's the first time I've had that. So there's people now really positioning that. There's been a handful of others. Actually, maybe a year and a bit ago, Ronsley runs a good podcast. He's recently changed the name of it on AI as well. And so he came on and shared about it as well. So yeah, it's coming more and more into awareness. But here's what I'm finding. I'm meeting a lot of business owners who have awareness of it, but there's a lot of fear around it. There's a lot of, they're being very slow to implement. And I think there's a few things I'm noticing. Like one, a lot of people are very overwhelmed. A year ago when I looked at it, there was something like 5,000 AI tools. I checked this week, there's 17,080 AI tools. 17,000. So people are overwhelmed, right? And a lot of people, once they keep hearing about it, they actually don't know what's possible. There's all these things that we can do with it, but they have no awareness of how it can completely help them. One of the main objections I'm hearing from people is they don't want to reduce the human experience. They don't want a machine to take over from the human experience. And then a lot of people are fearful of like how expensive it's going to be and how much effort it's going to take to implement. So it's filtering in, but a lot of business owners just they're not taking the action that they could be taking on it.
Yeah, and with so many, a lot of tools are built on other tools, so that's of course one challenge. But with so many tools available, or maybe type of tools, which ones have impressed you the most when it comes to helping companies sort of get the growth and sort of, apart from ChatGPT, but otherwise, what tools do you favor?
I have a lot. I'm plugged into a team of 6 or 7 AI researchers, so they're sharing a lot with us all of the time. Probably best I summarize rather than specific tools. I want to summarize the 5 key areas first, right? Because the first place a lot of business owners can use it, conversational AIs and chatbots. This can become very powerful. I'm seeing now, particularly if you've got a lot of customer service to do, there's certain tools reduce your your load, your customer query load 80% plus. Right, if we put these things in, they can help move cold prospects into being warm prospects and getting them onto your calendar. Okay, so there's a lot of opportunities with AI chatbots. Number 2 is large language models then to really assist your processes. How can we start building your own knowledge into a database? Just like we spoke about that CV thing just now, like maybe that the CV agency who created that, great, all of a sudden their knowledge is there and they can use it again and again. So can we start building your own processes and your own systems into it? The third one, I think, is probably a big area for a lot of business owners, which is media content production. How can we actually build a higher quality content in faster periods. I love this one myself. Has made a big difference to me. I started playing with Descript, so video editing tool. I'm not a video editor. I'm not technical in any aspect, but I can pull in a long form video. It transcribes it for me. I can edit it by editing the text and then easily put music, B-roll footage. And so within 5-10 minutes, I take a long form video, make something really powerful that can promote it. I did that, and because I could do it so quickly, I got an additional 60,000 downloads or video views on TikTok in a period of 50 something days. So now there's a lot of different media content production tools we can use. I think the other piece next is personalization. We can now start personalizing things en masse. We can actually start leveraging the tools and the techniques there to actually help people feel more connected with this. The fifth one then, it's had a bit of a resurgence because it's like automation. Like automation was a thing before AI, but automation, of course, is like if this, then that. It would just work on logic. But the AI piece can be embedded inside that now and do the strategic thinking and the analysis. So if we start having these complex workflows with the logic in there, there's no end to how we can use that. Like I've been able to use that, on simple things like in terms of, you spoke about the podcast before, I'd need 3 or 4 people in the process to take care of it. Now the Zoom recording can finish downloading, the AI can transcribe it, it can do the SEO optimized show notes, right? It can pass that over to the editor to edit the audio. I haven't found the AI can immediately edit the audio yet, but we'll probably get there, or you may know a tool you can tell me. And then once she's done with her stuff, it can be uploaded to the platform, get automatically put out wherever it needs to go. And then an email can be triggered off to the guest to tell them, hey, this is available now, please share it. So all of that stuff used to take hours and hours and cost money for every single person. Doesn't need to now. So yeah, 5 areas, like which one is most relevant for you? Either chatbots, the LLMs, the media content production, the personalization, or the automating complex workflows. I think for a lot of business owners, I hear frequently it's the media content and automating the workflows. But tell me, what about your experience?
Well, I mean, if you tie it back to also the sales that we talked about before, like sort of being active and replying, you can then have a call and then you can get a quotation back to the client very quickly, or at least a meeting summary saying, hey, this is what we discussed, and so we can take it forward. So one last question before we move into the Q&A. Where do you think we're going to be in terms of AI and revenue and profit maximization in 3 years? What's going to happen in the world with this fast development?
Hey, so I want to reflect on a book I read by a guy called Mo Gadot. I don't know if I pronounced his surname right. The book is called Scary Smart. And he said something in there which was really interesting to me. So he believes we'll be at the singularity by 2029, right? And that means like AI is as smart as the smartest human that we have, right? Some people may argue it's there already, but right, it's coming, right? It's going to get very close. And then he goes on to say by 2049, AI is going to be so smart, like the comparison will be AI will be like Einstein and our intelligence will be like that of a fly, right? And so it's this exponential growth curve. And I don't think we can fully comprehend what that means. We're used to things moving, in a linear fashion, right? But this is like exponential, like there's a major curve. And so I think within 2 to 3 years, I mean, here's the important piece. There's 2 types of change in the world. There's cyclical change, boom bust cycles, and a structural change. Once that structural change happens, it's not going back, right? Once you had the internet, you're not going back. Now we have AI, we're not going back. That genie's out the bottle. So I think in 3 years, 4 years, as business owners, we're going to be in 1 or 2 positions. We're either going to be in a place where we've learned it and applied it and getting the benefit out of it, or we're going to be left behind by all the people that are. So I don't know if that fully answers your question, but I think that's what's coming.
No, it's a good point. And some people say you want to be above the algorithm, not below it. I mean, you want to be the one who tells the AI what to do and to work for you. And I think what you have given us today is a number of really good steps that anyone can take and then say, hey, how can I use this with the AI tools? So before we move into the Q&A, so what we normally do, we have Startup Grind. I mean, Kevin, it's been truly insightful to have you here as a guest. Thank you so much for sharing your in wisdom, and great to have you here.
My pleasure entirely. I saw your pre-questions. I'm like, wow, that's a lot. We're not going to get through it, but you did a good job. That was awesome.
Yeah. So now we move into the Q&A.